Welcome to Deep in the Plus. I'm your host, Rob Whiteside. Thank you guys, as always, for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe to WDWNT TV for more great content, and also please give us a like so that people can find this video. Tonight, we are talking about something new, something different, and when I think of something different, I think of this gentleman, Ron Deanna. How are you, sir?
Aloha, how's it going?
Good. I'm just now realizing that Aloha is your sign-on. I didn't realize that. I'm an idiot. That's your thing, huh?
I did it at the Tiki Room for years, so that's why I keep it.
There you go. I'm so observant. You know what? Tonight we're going to be talking about something that just dropped on Disney. And normally it's really weird about like, do we talk about something that just dropped on Disney Plus or do we wait a little while for people to absorb it? But this one, it's a series of shorts from Zootopia and it's called Zootopia Plus. So this was something that was announced a long time ago. They announced it during the like an investor call. They rolled it out with a whole bunch of other like animated things that they were going to dive into, including they were going to dive into Moana some more and Baymax, which they've already done. So this is something we were promised a long time ago. Instead of a Zootopia 2, we're getting Zootopia Plus. This whole short series thing. Before we get into like the meat of this, Ron, when they take an IP like this and they extend it because they have Disney Plus, is this the right move for this to go to shorts rather than a series or a sequel? What do you think?
I think it depends on the IP, particularly like I think it's worked on some of them, and I think it's been okay on others. I don't think any of them have been really horrible. Like the Groot things were cute. I don't think there was anything amazing about them. They were fun. They were cute. Um, what else have we had? The Cars on the Road, was that the series?
Yeah.
I think that was just to keep the IP relevant for a little bit because it's kind of waned off a little bit. I think those were fantastic, but that was because we stuck with our main characters, and I think that's what's going to be one of the things I think's a little weird about Zootopia Plus is that we don't see much of our main characters, and it felt a little odd at times because of that. But I think in certain ways it is to keep things relevant and keep things going. And if it does good numbers, they probably will either expand out to a sequel or something else. Like I think the Baymax one, I think once again that was like it was fine. I think I liked what I've seen of the animated show a little bit better, but
Hmm.
because I just kind of like a little like more story than you get in some of these sometimes. But
Yeah.
like because they weren't like madcap comedies like I think Zootopia Plus is. I think these felt like old school shorts as
Well,
opposed to like Groot kind of felt like that. Cars felt just continuation of those character stories. Baymax just kind of felt weird at
you know,
times. It didn't feel like. Oh, go ahead.
Baymax felt like a series to me. These don't feel like a series necessarily, but Baymax felt like a series because you had each one was like a different installment, even though they were so short. I was expecting them to be that 20 to 30 minute like what I expect from a series, but this they were very short. But even though they were short, each one was a different adventure with Baymax that we hadn't seen before. And then with that one, it actually kind of comes to a climax in a final episode where everybody gets together. So we've met all these characters, and so to me, that one felt like a series. This one felt like when you would buy a DVD, kids look it up. When you would buy a DVD and on the front it would be like, Mike's new car or Jack Jack Attack or those kind of things. That's what this felt like to me was like something that they would have done to put on the front of the Zootopia DVD, but just like six of them.
Yeah, I think they're just testing out to see if people still like it because, as we saw, the blue sky ideas, involve all kinds of these things and what they're doing in Shanghai. So maybe they're just really testing to see its relevancy before they commit to anything else, at least here, and just at least try and keep in the consciousness maybe why they are developing a sequel or maybe a longer series. And I think one of the things that kind of annoys me about this is they break it up into these what should be 2 half-hour specials or a 1 1 hour special, probably even shorter if you when you get all the credits done. It's probably gonna be what 45 minutes of
Yeah.
actual content. Is they're just saying like we have this many titles. It's like really, and that's the kind of thing that feels weird about some of these.
Yeah, before I get into that, let me follow up on something you just said. So you feel like this is kind of like a beta test to see if people still love Zootopia as much as they think they do, whether it's to build theme park attractions or come at us with a sequel?
Or merchandise or whatever, just because they need to figure out like it was a huge hit worldwide. It was okay in the US if I remember, but it really did amazing overseas. And one of the things I'd like to see that I remember that this movie did that I think some of it was on the special features on the discs, but like they like did localize the localization for all the news segments or different animals, and I like to see like all of those put together on something like that would be another cool like thing to like try and make us remember this. But like, so it definitely did have a bigger overseas presence, and maybe this is just trying to keep it relevant because when it's opening Shanghai next year, we've saw some of the stuff at D23, right?
Right. Yep.
And then, am I wrong that that was one of the blue sky things they were talking about for, or am I? No, it was
No,
Moana
no, no.
and
Yeah, you're right. You're right. There, when they were talking about Dinoland replacement, right?
yeah,
It was supposed to be Zootopia on one side and then Moana on the other side, and then the rest of the stuff was at Kingdom, I think. So yeah,
yeah,
it was one of the things they were talking about, and there is an attraction that looks like a trackless ride that they have come up with that takes place at the ZPD, the Zootopia Police Department, and that looks like a neat attraction. I think that I feel like most people love this IP. When you talk about it, I haven't heard many people say I don't like this movie. I think this actually kind of fit nicely. I don't know that it needs a sequel because one of the things that's a problem for me with a sequel is that they go in and they have to destroy everything of the happy ending, right? And this one ended, the Zootopia movie, which we actually haven't reviewed on Deep in the Plus, which we probably should do sometime, but it ended up being like, wrapped with a bow and a big Shakira song at the end. You would have to like mess up the happy ending to make sure to go on, and I kind of like it where it is. And what this series does is it's a companion to that. It actually is like Lion King 1.5. It takes place within the structure of the actual movie. So I feel like there's going to be this great attraction, and there's these shorts. You know, I assume they're still going to bring this attraction to the States, but I mostly probably because it would be a cost saving thing because Shanghai's probably flipped the bill for
development.
for the design and development.
I mean, but I think one of the things like Zootopia could work is it's a police story. You could like, are you saying like Lethal Weapon 2 ruined Lethal Weapon 1 by coming out? I mean, like, there are certain kinds of genres that lend themselves to sequels because they don't have to destroy. It's just another case.
Maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. I mean, I guess it's kind of a buddy movie in a lot of ways. So I guess I could see that happen. But a lot of times, it's different to me in the Disney movies, like with Enchanted and Disenchanted. Disenchanted's coming out soon. The whole premise is that everything that Giselle ended up with in her happy ending kind of goes away. And
Yeah.
then you see that in a lot of sequels as they get to the top of the mountain at the first movie, they overcome the demon, whatever it is, and then in the next movie they have to like either they've lost all the money that they won in the first one, or they've lost the love of their life because they screwed it up again, or something like that. I mean, you're right; it doesn't have to be that way. Fast and the Furious surely doesn't do that with the 9 movies that it's had, but sometimes it does. I mean, sometimes they have to kind of take the character on a journey to get you back where you need to be. I
Yeah.
don't know. We're way off topic on that, but I'm saying like I like this movie like it is. I've said my favorite movie is Nightmare Before Christmas. I like that movie like it is. I don't need more Nightmare Before Christmas. Unless they could do something amazing, and I'm not sure they could. I would have said that same thing about The Incredibles, but Incredibles 2 I liked, but again, they had to break down.
it's a comic book story. Once again, that's something that's structured to be able to do different things with the characters. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to, like, yes, the character has to have a journey, but it could be like one of them actually gets married and they have to balance life and things like that on top of having your A plot of like whatever the crime they have to solve. So you could do things like that in these kind of serialized, storytelling. It's not, you know, Cinderella, who get the whole point was to get her to the happy ending with Prince Charming, and then you have to have time travel in the sequels with like things to just kind of ruin the plot.
Yeah, I get it. But like the Santa Claus.
I've
The-
seen, I think I've seen parts of two and none of three. So
what? What? That's all good. I just, again, I mean, the Zootopia movie, the first one, I loved. When we talk about park attractions and the view of the possible, I still think that the best thing they could have done with that would have been to somehow taking the train that is the T train out of that's back in the back of the park, and taking that up to what is now Rafiki's Planet Watch, and taking that whole area, including some space that's not being used, and make it a train ride to Zootopia. That would have been, I think, fantastic, because the one thing that people have said about putting Zootopia in Animal Kingdom is there's an aesthetic of Animal Kingdom already that's a very natural nature thing, that if you had a cartoony land, it would kind of break that. So if you have it all the way in the back of the park where you can't see it until you take this train ride, that to me would be a fantastic option. But I'm happy to see something else for kids, for families to come to that area. So as much as I kind of romanticize Dino Land, I feel like Zootopia would fit in there.
and I
But
actually think what we're really going to get there is just Moana most of the land and a little Zootopia mini land with maybe a couple meet and greets and then dinosaur overskinned in some way.
fair, it could be, yeah. Especially again if you gutted the building and did this trackless ride system.
I think they would just adapt it for the EMV. Like, I mean, not that those things don't break down a lot, but like the trackless rides aren't exactly flawless either.
True,
So
that's
it's
fair.
how much they want to spend.
Yeah,
And
that
if
they
you
don't
make
want
it
to spend
less
much.
rough, you could put smaller kids on Dinosaur because Dinosaur and Indy have different heights. Like Andy could have ridden Dinosaur earlier this year, and then 6 months later at Disneyland, she couldn't get on Indy.
Hmm.
Like it's one of those like, why do they have a different height? They have the same track.
Do you think it's because it's too intense? Because
I
I
think
don't
part
know.
of it is that they try and target a slightly like I probably wasn't going to take her on it because she's tall and a 3.5-year old probably should not be on those rides, but she
Right.
could if she wanted to.
Yep. That's fair. Let's get back to Zootopia Plus here for a second. So one of the things that's different to me in this one versus the Groot shorts is, in the Groot shorts, each of them are kind of their own little mini movie. They're listed separately in the interface for Disney Plus. This one's listed as a series, but yet each one is so individual. Does it really even classify as a series?
Oh, I think because they're all tied into the movie. Each one of these is a scene you see in the movie, and it's either how we got to that scene or something that happened after it when our main characters left. Like, let's go to the first one is the hop on board is the parents, what happens to them right after Judy gets on the train to Zootopia, which apparently is maybe a two stops on a commuter rail and that they've never been into the city before or whatever. That was kind of a thing that like stood out to me right away was how short that train ride actually was.
You know, it's funny that you
Um,
should say that, because I exactly had that same thought. Was, that make it seem like Zootopia is the big city and it's so far away, and yet they get there in no time. And so all of these transitions that we saw in the movie as the train is going through, a tundra town and all these other places, I felt like this was a long journey for Judy. But like you said, it kind of just ends up two stops on a commuter train sort of a situation. So yeah, I was shocked by that as well.
Kind of
Um,
reminded me of like Smallville when they moved Metropolis to like not too far from Smallville. Like they could just go into the city whenever they needed, as opposed to being on the East Coast and Kansas.
right.
Like it really
Yeah.
was a big change. And I like this. Like the first one took me by surprise about what it was going to be. Like I didn't realize it was going to be the like, oh, all of these are going to be, oh, just a shoot off of a scene. So like the first one felt a little jarring that way. And I mean, I'm glad that they got all the voice talent back and in all throughout these, which is really something to continue with. And
All but one. Zach Braff.
who did he play?
Zach Braff was Flash in the movie, but in this one, Flash is played by Raymond Percy. Don't know why.
Is he that busy?
I mean, that was what I thought about Drax. When we talk about you were talking about just now that they got the voice cast back in the original, in the What If series from Marvel. I was disappointed that they got some of the big dog names to come back and do the voices, but then some of the smaller ones, like Drax, like what was he doing that he couldn't come back for just a voiceover as few times as he was in there?
Well,
So I
he
mean,
clearly,
there's
I think he said he wants out.
yeah,
So
but
like the others are like, yeah, I'll add it to my contract or whatever. I think he's just like, this is my contract, and then I'm done.
yeah, I guess so. But to me, it's very disappointing as a fan that you can't take 2 minutes. The same thing as like Rocket is not voiced by Bradley Cooper in the pre-show for Cosmic Rewind. I mean, it's blatantly obvious.
It's record like, and I know people like I've seen voice actors say this. I don't feel like I'm trying to dump on them. Like it's not easy work, but it's not hard work. You go into a booth for these kind of things would be like 2 hours and you're done and you collect the paycheck. Like, is it really that busy?
Yeah.
Like Brad just did work for Disney Plus, so it's not like they have any kind of issue with him. He was a really weird character in
Cheaper by the dozen too.
and Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
So
So,
it might have just been this has to be done now and there's no availability, or they
but
just
especially with Flash, I mean, Flash has so few words that's the one of the Dinner Rush. It's one of the last ones.
yeah.
But again, that's another thing to me is when I look at this. So you were talking about Baymax and the animated series. What I didn't like about that one is it's not the same Baymax animation as the original movie, the animated series, not the shorts. The shorts were the regular animation from the movie, and to me that lines up better. Like in my mind, it's like, okay, this is all the same thing. Same thing goes though with the voices. I want to see the same voices in here, and it be a continuation. Usually in the shorts, it's the same voices that they do when they again tag stuff on the front of a DVD. So I like that most of the voices came back. I really kind of like filmed through all of it, and it was just like, let me make sure everybody's the same. Like, is that really, Jason Bateman? Did they that scene where Jason Bateman's voice was in was it was the end cut scene from the movie. So I mean that they could have just reused that and then just cut him a check and put him in the credits. Whereas the one that Kristen Bell did for Priscilla, that one was different.
Yeah, the one I was actually most questioning was, is Alan Tudyk singing?
I think so. Yeah.
As far
So
as I could say, it just said it was him. It didn't say anybody else.
so
Like,
while this is a series, it reminds me a little bit of the MCU in something I heard somebody say once about each MCU movie is kind of a different kind of movie. Like the Captain America movies are kind of like these political thrillers where and spies, and the Ant-Man is kind of like a comedy sort of a situation, and
yeah,
you
you
know
had the first Ant-Man was a heist comedy,
right.
like, and then you had Captain America. You had the war film. You had the like a '70s noir kind of spy thriller, and I think that's why Redford was there, kind of like for it. And I think they like do very well. It's like, and I mean, it goes beyond that. It's like I think that's good for comic book movies is to throw the comics into something like that. Like why I think the just going off topic here, like one of the reason why I love The Dark Knight is one of my absolute favorite movies is it's Goodfellas with Batman in it. It's a crime drama first, and then add that. And I think playing off a cartoon series, like as a spinoff, you don't want to do the same thing as the movie. So why not pull the movie into these other genres? And
Right. But same as, yeah, exactly. And same as the MCU like comparison with this one, there are 6 shorts in the series, or 6 episodes. I guess they're not really calling them shorts, but 6 episodes, and each one sort of has its own genre. So like the Real Rodents of Little Rodentia is kind of a Real Housewives kind of a thing. Duke the musical is a musical kind of a thing. The Godfather of the Bride is really sort of the Godfather. It's this
Godfather
immigrant,
2.
yeah, it's an immigrant storytelling. So you think you can Prance is really more of the, the competition shows with America's Got Talent, and so you think you can dance, and then, Dinner Rush is kind of,
A
I
workplace
guess maybe,
comedy, I think.
yeah, I could go with that. And I was like, but at the same time, like you said at the start, they all tie in and kind of complement, or cuts or scenes from the movie, because at some point during each of these, you see a piece from the movie in the short, so that yes, this ties in. So it's really kind of like I said, the Lion King 1.5, where it's like happening concurrently with the movie, and they're little pieces of like offshoots of what were happening. And I was like, well, then what does that make the Hop on Board one? Because I wasn't really sure. But then I went and looked at it, and the logo,
It's a Mickey Mouse short, basically. Like a
but the logo is Fast and
Fast and
Furious.
the Furious. Yeah,
So,
I
I mean, you're right. You're right in what you said, but and the fact that, so the basic gist is that it takes place where Judy was getting on board the train. The parents are still there. They're kind of dealing with her leaving, and they realize one of their kids is on top of the train. Which, by the way, I went back to the original movie, and you clearly see the train go away, and there's no little kid on it, obviously. So there's some little inconsistencies of the them laying this over top. It would have been amazing had they planned that far ahead, and the little bunny was still on top of it. But obviously, that's not something they did. So they've retconned that a little bit. But when the train is going away, their one of their kids is on it, and then they decide they've got to quickly like chase it. So again, I guess in that way, it is sort of a chase, Fast and the Furious thing, with them trying to chase that train. But what I noticed most about this short was how quickly the banter was between the mom and the dad. It was just like boom, 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 boom. And I think
yeah.
to me, that was very well written.
I know. I think it was. I think it was good. I think what I said this one when I first watched it. This is one of the ones I watched twice. When I first watched it, it jarred me that like, oh, this is straight out of the movie. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting. I don't know what I was expecting with this series, honestly. But I wasn't expecting like interstitials that could be woven into the movie, like that. And but like watching it again with my daughter, like it was funny and it was uh, there's a bunch of quick one-liners, uh, and yeah, it felt like a Mickey Mouse short more than anything, like like the Madcap kind of old style cartoon short more than any of the others did.
So let me ask you this: you watched it with your daughter. Did she like it? Did she like this series?
She just kept asking for Giselle because she just, I mean, for her it's the musical numbers that she really likes and anything like. Uh, we were watching Vivo as well earlier today, and she's just like, "Can we just skip the story and go to the next song?"
Yeah, I get it. All right, so yeah, that the first one, there were some things that bothered me about it, but I mean, just it was interesting how it lined up at the beginning. It was when they're standing on the platform at the train station, and the parents are talking about, in the movie part of it, they're talking about, we're worried about you in the big city, and watch out for foxes, and dad's got a bag, and he's like, here's some fox repellent, here's a fox taser, all these other things. So they cut that part out, but a lot of the rest of it does line up with how that original scene happened. So I did go back to the original Zootopia to see if it lined up pretty closely. and it does. But the couple things that bothered me were like kind of like the parents are supposed to be these very sweet people, but also the dad comes off super dumb. Like he tosses the keys for no particular reason to his wife, and then they fall down a grate, and then she hot wires the car. Why did that have to happen? What I mean, what were we trying to learn from that? Is that the dad's a dunce? Like why would throwing the keys make things happen any faster? I don't know, but that was bothersome. And then the other thing was what you just said about the how close Zootopia was kind of shocking
Yeah.
to me.
I think there were good gags. There were some gags you always kind of seen, like the baby ran away. Like I was thinking like the old Roger Rabbit shorts when he's chasing baby Herman or whatever. It's like it's walking over this and walking. I'm like just watching like the baby almost get smashed in a completely oblivious way.
Yeah. So on the second one's one that I, with all of the previews that we had of this, you know, when they talked about it coming out of D23 or out of the investors, and the entire time they've been talking about this is the one that to me I feel like we've heard the most about was the real rodents of Little Rodentia. So in this one, it's like the Real Housewives. So that's that's the reality show angle on this one. But I feel like this is the one we saw the most of. But one, and this is like Mr. Big and Frou Frou, and I mean, and it's really very much like from the out of focus scenes, like cutting to somebody's reaction. It's very much like a Real Housewives episode. I mean, it's so funny how well put together this thing is.
Yeah, I've never watched any of Real Housewives at all, so I had no idea what like if I was missing in jokes or anything. That like I know the concept, and in my mind I was just playing off Jersey Shore in my head with like cut to the interviews, things like that,
Yeah.
and the same type of characters to be honest. Um, uh, but that's what I was like. Oh, this I get this, but I might be missing something here. But I think there was enough there. If you didn't know the parody here, you're gonna still have fun.
Yeah, I also have not watched Real Housewives, but yeah, it is very much real world, Big Brother, all those with the cutaway scenes of the side interviews with everybody or the confessionals. So yeah, it's that way. But here's something that came up in my head, Ron, as we were watching this that I'm not really sure what the purpose of this was, is that these are shrews, like why are there shrews? Like, why didn't we go mice for this in the
There's
original? I mean,
some mice
obviously,
mixed in.
okay,
The friends are mice. I mean, I guess the shrews kind of made good for the crime boss family in the original, and that's why they like. As far as a rodent, it's a more aggressive rodent. It's a slightly larger,
yeah,
so maybe that's what it was there for.
yeah. Then yeah, you're right. Two of the friends are mice.
But one's a mouse, one's a rat. I think from the look of it.
Yeah. But it was just like I looked at it today, and when I'm watching this short, and the nose is curved up, and I'm just like, it was an interesting choice. Like the lemming joke in Zootopia, totally on point because they're lemmings and they're following each other, and Nick takes advantage of that for what he needs. The small joke with him being small, like Mr. Big being small, could have gone off without with just a mouse. But I guess maybe it does make sense that he's a little more rough being a shrew. I don't know. I don't know much about
Shrew,
shrews.
shrewd. I mean,
Yeah, okay, I'll go with that. I'm down.
or they were playing the
Um,
whole wedding scene with taming of the shrew. Who knows?
I don't know. It was just one of those things that I just was like, huh, interesting. I'm not sure how much I paid attention to that. Let me go back for a second and ask you what you thought of the intro because the intro is it's a weird kind of animation, like it's all 2D, and it's unique, but it doesn't hearken to me of anything from Zootopia in general. And it's the exact same intro on all 6 episodes, and it's 30 seconds long on something that like all these shorts are 10 or 11 minutes, and 30 seconds of it is the intro, and the last 3 minutes are the credits.
Yeah, well, that's one thing I hate about watching these shorts, and a lot of these really short things on Disney's Plus, they put in all the localization credits, which I want people to be recognized for their work, but like, can you maybe like I don't need to find out who did the Japanese language ones when I'm watching it in English, especially when they're going episode to episode, and like some of these, there's like little lullaby things my daughter watches that are like 3 minutes and then 3 minutes of credits every time. So yeah, but I like the intro. I don't mind the difference in animation styles, like you were talking about the Baymax and the Big Hero 6. Like that one I liked because I think the animation of the show, like the felt a little more towards the comic booky side and like the little more playing on the anime concept of it. Um, this, I just think it's like, this is the credits. It's gonna be like this. I mean, not every like other shows have had like Cheers wasn't all in sepia tone.
Right. No, you're right. You're right. So this is interesting. Something you just said about like your daughter and watching, a something that's 3 minutes and then the credits are 3 minutes. It reminds me of a Brian Regan. I don't know if you're familiar with the comedian Brian Regan, a Brian Regan joke, and maybe you'll appreciate this as a dad, because your daughter is much younger. The he was talking about these books and these children's books. Some of them it's like the Brown, and then you turn the page cow was, and then it's like 2 words per page, and then you flip to the back and it's like join the brown cow on a journey through blah blah blah, and it's like this whole huge like description that is like 18 times longer than the book, and then the book itself is like $40. um that's kind of what this feels like. It's this huge packaging of a series, but there's 6 episodes. Okay, well, 6 episodes at 10 minutes each would be an hour, and you're
But
you're
there's
you're
only about 6 minutes actual content in there.
right. You're calling it a series, but it's really 6 shorts that equal out to about 35 minutes total.
I mean, is this just us being old and like we're not used to dealing with like YouTube series and things like that? And like it's just that's what maybe kids are more used to, and kids want to see is they're trying to play to these short attention spans. I mean, did they just say Hercules is going to be a TikTok
Right.
inspired musical? And I'm like,
Right.
yeah,
Well,
it's hopefully that
okay,
means the
so
U.S. government might ban it at some point.
if that's the case and we're talking about youth, I think youth has a very short attention span, and there should have been a play all button that would have eliminated the need for the credits and the opening scenes. Like that should have been on here. I think the a play all button that would have let you go and spend the 36 minutes. Because by the time I did the first 1.5 episodes, I'm like, okay, now I get it. There is a skip intro button on, to skip that
Yeah,
30 seconds of intro. I did watch it all the way through the first couple times, and then I started skipping it. And then when you get to the end, with the end credits, then you can, skip to the next episode. But I wish it was, I don't know. I wish it was like, let's watch it all as one. I don't know.
well,
Maybe I'm asking too
like I
much.
talk about Bluey a lot. Bluey on Disney Plus is you get the way they show in Australia is these 7 minute full episode, like the 7 minute episodes that have their own credits and their own intro. They're not as long. They're maybe like, I mean, maybe the beginning intro is a little longer, but the credits don't last forever. Like they don't have all the localization stuff. But when they put it on Disney Junior, they put 3 of those episodes together and they put the commercials in between. So they know how to handle combining these things in a certain way too. And
Plus, you love the Bluey intro. You got to hear the Bluey intro all the time. Bingo! Dun, dun, dun. Yeah. All right, so let's talk about the third one, which you kind of mentioned before, which is the Alan Tudyk one. It's Duke the Musical. With this one, the Duke character, Duke of the Duke Weaselton, is a joke on the Duke of Wesselton from Tangled. So this is like a joke within a joke within a joke at this point, right?
yeah, I think they're just playing it. I mean, I don't care as Alan Tudyk. I mean, I once went to a con and spent just I think it was an they had the largest auditorium on just him talking about his different roles in Disney and Firefly for like an hour and a half, and I sat there and watched the whole thing. So I really do like him as an actor, and as I said, I was surprised. I didn't know he could sing or anything like that. I like, and this voice, you don't hear, like, in some of his you could hear his normal voice in it. I don't hear it so much in the nasaliness of the Weasel, but it's a fun character, and like I thought it was an interesting musical. I like the jobs he describes, particularly when he says you might as well be a lawyer. And uh, but you know what? It's a good side character. He was a good side character that more memorable than a little bit of the some of these things felt.
Yeah. This one, I love this inside joke. You were talking about inside jokes and little gags, with this movie. This little inside joke with the cash that he's got. It's the Bank of Weaselton, and it says, "Call Pop Goes the." Come on, that's funny. That's funny.
There was another thing with the bootlegs in this, wasn't there? And I didn't quite freeze frame it. I think he holds up like because that was one of the things I loved about the original Zootopia was when they had all the animal versions of the bootlegs that they were selling on
Right.
the side of the road.
Yeah, I remember that. I don't remember seeing it in
I
here.
thought I saw it hold up some stuff again. I don't know if it was the same ones because it wasn't gigantic
Yeah,
in the
gigantic was funny.
original.
Oh, I this is what you're talking about. I think this Pig Hero 6. Where
Yeah,
he's holding up this the Power of Duke thing. Yeah.
yeah, it might have been. That's what I remember.
So
Because there's
yeah,
a lot. It just flies a lot of those
yeah.
quick references.
Yeah, and this one also has like just every joke that you could possibly think of is put in here, and it reminds me of like I've done News Tonight graphics before, and like hidden like sevens in there, or done little things in the bit that make it a little bit funnier, a little attention to detail. But like I'm looking at this one, and instead of Apple Pay, it's got Peach Pay. Little
Well, and
ridiculous
then it's
things like that.
carrot on the back of the phone.
Yeah, yeah, the phones that they
So
go through. You're right.
like that's one thing I see in other shows too. Is like whatever they're going to make their fake iPhone version is it's not always consistent. Like what the logo is. I think because like in Back to Bluey, some of it's a paw, and I think sometimes it's a bone.
Yeah. Um, so you were talking about Alan Tudyk, and I agree with you. He is absolutely amazing, underrated so much. He played Bruce Wayne's cousin in Powerless, the TV show that was on ABC for a hot minute about the DC universe. He played in, there was Suburgatory. It was a half-hour sitcom that was on. He played like a dentist. He's done so many things. I mean, I think probably my first like real introduction to him was Firefly with Wash. But he was Steve the Pirate in Dodgeball. I mean, so
Yeah.
many good roles that he had. And so when he was at D23 this year and he came out on stage, he was talking about being in the new Disney movie that's coming up called Wish, because he's kind of their lucky charm, the same way John Ratzenberger was. Seems like John Ratzenberger has not been in Pixar movies the past few, and they haven't done all that well. I mean, is there a correlation? Like, so Alan Tudyk has been the lucky charm that they've had in all of them, even doing ridiculous things like the voice of Hey Hey. So when he goes in and he comes out on the stage, he's talking about this goat that he's doing. He does all these impressions, or he does the voices of all the things he's done, like King Candy um, and just random stuff that he's done. But I love him, and I love that he came back to do this. And I think you're right. I hope that he was singing the whole thing.
And
So
there's things you could hear his voice in, and there's things you're not. Like there are some voice actors you always know it's their voice, even when they're doing an accent or whatever. And that's not to take anything away. That's probably why they're cast. But like his Ed Wynn is for King Candy, and like I mean, hey hey, who know? I mean, he's just clucking and made one of the most amazing side non-speaking character. Like I still want a Hey Hey and Becky Tiki Room takeover.
okay, I'm
I'd
down.
be okay with that.
By the way, I did another freeze frame. He's holding two others, but you never really get a chance to see what the other two are. It looks like it's clearly a Moana play there, and maybe a Tangled one, but you can't really. He throws them like immediately after this scene. You can watch like he throws them, and you never really get to see what they are. So
Yeah, you might be able to freeze frame, but it's hard to get those.
yeah. But yeah, it's a fun little episode, and I think it's a full song, and it is very theatrical.
I,
So
one of the things it made me think of was, did you guys cover the cars on the road?
no, we did not.
Did you watch them?
No, actually, I didn't.
In the middle of them, there's just a musical episode where Mater just starts having this fantasy about trucks, and there's just a song, trucks, trucks. Like he's into all these big rigs, and they're at a rest stop, and there's a giant song about trucks, and that's one of the episodes right in the middle of the series, and that's when I'm like, oh, they're kind of doing that because they want to have it's a Disney, they want to have a song that they can use in other things, so here it comes.
Yeah, I thought. I mean, again, that one, I liked the song. It didn't have as much story in that one. I feel like because it had the song, so it was really more of a showstopper in the middle of all this other stuff. But it was still a fun little episode, and again, it picks up right after he's getting out of jail from when Judy sent him to jail. So he's coming out of jail, and he sees up on the big screen, almost like Times Square in Zootopia, like they're talking about his arrest and how he kind of tore up Little Rodentia. In the Little Rodentia episode, it's the she's going to do some shopping therapy, and when she comes out, that's when Judy stops the donut from falling on her. And then of course we talked about the way that the first movie or the first short with the Hopps starts is when Judy's taken off. So again, all of them are tied into spaces within within the movie. The next one that comes
Um,
up is
back
this one,
back
The
to that,
Godfather. Go ahead.
if you're doing your, I don't know if you're doing your little trivia tonight.
Not doing trivia tonight, buddy. You're off the hook.
There was one I was thinking of you, like when they're walking out. Well, I was trying to notice all the things, like all the animal name versions of things, and I couldn't. Like they come by so quick in some of these, you have to freeze frame. But when she's leaving the retail therapy, she's leaving a Macy's playoff, but holding a whole bunch of Target playoff bags. I thought that
Yep.
was
Yeah, I definitely saw the Target bags over there. I didn't realize that it was a Macy's that she was coming, or a Macy's knockoff that she was coming out of. But that would make sense that she would be shopping there instead of at Target. But no, I thought about trivia, and then I thought, you know what, it's different. See, I feel like it's different if it's something that's been around a while. Like I really
yeah.
tore Patrick up last week in Escape to Witch Mountain because I felt like, oh, this is one that's been around a while. And even Ike Eisenman, who from the movie that played Tony, was like, I'm not doing well with this either. I mean, so some of the trivia stuff that I've found is just like little stuff that just jumps out at me when I'm watching it. And I did think about it for a little bit, but again, these are like we're just seeing this now, so I don't think that
Yeah.
that would have been fair to throw that out at you. So I'm gonna give you a break on that one.
Casablanca was a movie that they passed in the like flashback scene. That's another one I noticed
Oh, in the Godfather one.
in the Godfather one. Yeah,
Yeah. So again, you kind of mentioned this is sort of a Godfather 2 situation, the Godfather of the Bride, which is great. I mean, it's like Father the Bride and the Godfather all rolled
yeah.
into one. But it's really kind of his, you know, it's his backstory, his immigrant backstory. But here's where it ties into the movie. Is this was a scene from the movie, with her having her wedding finally.
And you get why the polar bears work for him, and like why they're loyal to him, even though he's a little shrew. It's really, and it doesn't play off like he's this big bad mob boss. It plays off like that old kind of community idea of like he is the protection for the community, and
Yeah. Yeah.
that played well.
No, and like some of the little bits about how they're coming to the new country and they're going on
It's
this what
across
looks like a huge
a
boat, but
sewer strip, yeah.
yeah, it's across a puddle. It's I mean, it's so funny to see. But it has a different tone to this one because as he's telling the story, it's like this flashback, old school. Like even the visuals are just this sepia, as you were talking about before, with the old cars and just cinematically, it's just very different from the rest of them.
And it's not as laugh out loud funny. I think at moments, like, I mean, not that I think I was on the floor laughing. But like, I don't think it's intentionally as funny as some of the others. I think there's definitely some parody in there you're gonna laugh at, but it's not like, I think the Real Housewives one was probably the funniest
Yeah.
overall. But
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think that there's something to be said for the dinner rush one, and we can talk about that when we get there. But there's something almost intense about this one because there's like his little bear friends getting beaten up and bullied and by this big guy, and that's when he kind of assumes the role that he rolls into of protector, godfather, etc. And like you said, kind of it explains how he becomes, how the polar bears kind of sort of become indebted to him.
the comedy in this one was for the parents, I think, because the people who know Godfather are going to see this and kind of like laugh at the parody of it. The kids are not. The kids are just going to be kind of like, oh, this is an interesting story, not get the references and things like that.
Well, and that's another question to you. And watching it with your daughter, did she get any of those references? Did it
This
mean
one I
anything
didn't
to
watch
her?
with her. I think we got through the first three today.
Uh,
My
um,
wife watched them with her last night when I was trying to read that Imagineering book, actually, because that's going to take a
so
long time.
so as this one's going, the next one is the so you think you can prance episode, and I'm gonna go out on a limb and say I feel like this is my least favorite.
Yeah, I don't think it was. It definitely wasn't my favorite, even though I think this is probably our most core character to the movie, right?
Clawhauser.
Yeah, I think he was the most main character we've gotten out of any of these side things. He like
Yeah.
played a part in the. He played a kind of a decent part in the story between him and Chief Bogo, and uh, but it
So you
was.
so you were saying all the rest of them were kind of minor characters, and this is the first time, other
I
than
felt.
Judy and Nick, that we're seeing a main character in one of these shorts.
Yeah, I think so. I think he felt more main than like Flash is probably the most memorable character, but he was, you know, more just a comedy device. I think Clawhauser played a role in the movie.
Yeah.
Um,
What I do like about this one though is so the basic gist is that he's calling for backup, which should have been reason for dismissal because he's calling for backup to be a backup dancer in a competition that would get him to be a backup dancer for Gazelle. And so when he's calling for that, that in a real police situation that'd be a problem. But then what feels like it's like redemption for this is it was all a dream.
or that just kind of like, and like when he wakes up from the dream, I'm like, oh, that's kind of annoying. And then you realize where it places in the movie in the next little shot, it makes more sense. It makes a lot more sense.
Well, plus this never happened. All the other stuff could have happened on the
Right.
side, and as I'm watching it, I'm getting a little angry of like that wouldn't have happened. But then what I'm realizing at this point is, looking back on it, is it's raining donuts, and obviously it wasn't going to be raining donuts on an episode of You Think You Can Dance. So there should have
And I
been
thought
things
that,
that I was like noticing.
and their dance was a little like over fantastical and stuff like that. Like a lot of stuff made more sense after the dream sequence. Like when he falls off the stage and gets picked up, like the stage wasn't that high off the ground in the shot. Like before that,
Right.
like
Yeah, it's like why didn't I see this coming, right? And then when he wakes up and he runs upstairs to talk to Chief Bogo, who's he runs upstairs, and when he sees them, he's doing the app, the Gazelle app, which he like he did in the movie. So yeah, that was kind of a neat thing. But again, these go by fast. They're very short.
yeah.
And again, I don't really. I feel like it's advertised as a comedy series, but each one couldn't have taken, like I said, more than 6 minutes once you get into it. And then the final one is the one that's called Dinner Rush, and that's the one with Flash. And even though it's with Flash, it's he's kind of not the star of it. It's this waitress named Sam that we meet in here, who's voiced by I'm gonna have to look her name up again, but I know who she is. Um, is she's why
I
don't
don't
I
remember looking her name
see her
up.
name? So Charlotte Nikado, and she's from a TV show that I love on Apple Plus that's called Mythic Quest, and it has Rob McElhenney from Always Sunny, and it's about them being game developers, and so it's an Australian accent. Sam is the waitress in this restaurant, and she's trying to get out by 6 o'clock, which is weird. It's like they're trying to close the restaurant at 6 o'clock. That seems like a weird time to close a restaurant.
Or weren't there other servers? Like
Right.
usually, like I'm leaving. You could have this table and take the tip. Like bye.
Right, exactly. So she seems to be the only server in the restaurant. There are multiple tables in this restaurant, and she's killing it. She's like the best waitress ever. And then once she's like talking to the chef, and she's like, "I'm trying." He's like, "Well, you're kind of like you're really busting your butt tonight." And she's like, "Well, I do have a ticket to see this Gazelle concert tonight, which again is going to line up with the movie." And so she's got this concert ticket, which this is her Taylor Swift. This is her big deal, and she's trying to get everything busted and done so she can get out of there by 6 o'clock. And then at the very last second, after she's been killing it all night, here comes the
The
sloths, and
sloths.
that they're going to slow down everything. And I remember seeing this bit in the preview that they showed at D23, and it got a huge laugh because the idea of Flash, he was kind of one of the big takeaways from the original movie was Flash and how funny he is. But the funny part in this one is that like she sees them come in and she's trying to get them to their table, but then she brings the table to them to try to hurry it up and trying to be as nice as she can, and then they make everything else fall apart. So I don't know. I may have enjoyed this one the most because I feel like it brought the most different to me. Felt like it was not necessarily dependent on the rest of the movie like a lot of the
Yeah.
other scenes were, because she's somebody we haven't met. The Flash and Priscilla are there for a date, and it's kind of an ancillary situation. It's almost like the B story to everything else she's doing. Um, but one thing I did think was interesting is these guys show up again. These were Judy's next door neighbors, and one voiced by one of the producers and one voiced by one of the directors, which I think is interesting that they came back and revoiced these characters again. Also, in the wiki, it says that they are married, which I don't
No.
think they make a big deal about that in the movie. But it says that these guys are married, and it's also like a weird onyx. I don't remember how to pronounce it. The name of the beast that these are.
There's some sort of antelope. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's Byron Howard plays Bucky Oryx, Oryx,
Oryx. Yeah.
and Jared Bush plays Pronk. So one of them's Bucky and one of them's Pronk. But yeah, I thought it was neat that even though those guys were kind of they're directors and producers, they still came back and voiced their characters.
Did they direct and produce anything in the series?
No, no, this was I think it's just because they were in the first one.
I'm guessing they
Um,
probably produced it in some way, but
Maybe. I'm looking at it's like director producer. Yep, nope, you're right. The producer of Zootopia Plus. So um, Byron Howard, who was the director in the first one, was listed as producer, and he is not listed as a director, which
no,
makes
that
sense.
makes more sense. Like, yeah,
Um, so that was all six of them, and different from the Baymax, like I was talking about earlier. The Baymax ones end with them, um, them all meeting together, and that's kind of cool. But the one um, um, with Groot, those are all kind of like the only thing that is in sequential order is the fact that he was in a pot and then he gets legs. The rest of them could be kind of thrown anywhere. This one follows the movie track. Each episode in it follows the movie track. The hop on board was when they first are putting her on the train, whereas this one ends at the end credit scene with them heading to see the Gazelle concert, but it's that end credit scene that when we see this car speeding through town, and Judy and Nick go to track it down, and they find out that it's Flash, and then he smiles. He's like, Nick, and then the movie, that's like their, I believe that was the end credit scene from the actual full length feature,
But wasn't
and
that during the
then
day?
we was this not, well, it's 6 o'clock. Remember, there was 6 o'clock with them
Yeah,
trying to
can we?
get out of there.
But I thought it was dark outside. No, like I didn't think about. I'll have to go back and check.
Flash, 100-yard dash. Um, so I mean,
Which I still can't believe they got that joke in the movie in a Disney movie, the first one,
what
the three
Flash?
humped camel.
Oh, because he was like, because he was asking the joke. Yeah.
Yeah, you know they put that in there, and they're like, "Oh, this is going to get kicked back to us," and somebody just let it slide.
Yeah, probably. You know what? I liked coming back to this. But there were some things about the setup of this that I just questioned, that it wasn't quite what I expected it to be. That's
Yeah.
just the thing. It wasn't quite what I expected it to be. Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap it up, buddy?
No, I mean it's fine. It's worth the what do we say, about 45 minutes of your time to watch these. Like if you enjoyed Zootopia, they're good. I think they're
So,
fine.
so then the question is, would you recommend it?
If you like the movie, there's nothing wrong with the shorts. If you didn't like the movie, you're probably not going to like the shorts. Um, but I mean, once again, it's not my favorite. I think it's of the newer Disney movies. It's probably one of the my least favorite. I would say of the second Renaissance. But like, it's perfectly serviceable, and these are decent enough. Like something to put on in the background. But I'm not going to rewatch these over and over again, honestly.
Okay. Well, you know what, I got to tell you that for me, Zootopia was one of the bigger deal movies. For that when I went to see it, I loved this movie. I thought it was great. I thought it I don't know. I thought it was better than I expected it to be when they described what it was. It felt like, oh, okay, anthropomorphic animals walking around. I feel like the new Pixar movie Elemental seems like it's Zootopia
It's,
but with
yeah,
elements. So I feel like, but Zootopia I think worked for me. I love the comedic values of it. I wish we could have seen more of those characters like you mentioned in this, like Finnick. Finnick's one of my favorite characters, and he's nowhere to be found in this. So to your point earlier, they look like they're trying to go more of those ancillary characters, those side things that were happening while Nick and Judy were the main characters in the movie. These are the things that were happening on the sidelines. I think it's neat that they fleshed it out. I think I kind of feel like you need to see the movie to watch the shorts. I feel like that's kind of a necessity. Is that you
and
need
you
to see
could
the movie
edit
to
them
watch the shorts?
straight into the movie and be done with, like, and not miss anything, and the movie
Yeah.
wouldn't be that much longer.
So I would say to
Maybe
kind of
Weaselton doesn't need to be in the movie, but the rest would be kind of fun in there.
yeah, I would say to kind of like to add to what you were saying to is that I would recommend it if you watched Zootopia. If you hadn't, go watch Zootopia and then watch this, and it'll be supplemental. But these feel like supplements, not an actual series to me. And I wish it was more. That's the only thing I'm asking, is that I think what they executed was great. I just wish it was more. And maybe we'll get more. Maybe that, but I don't know how, because like I said, it's 1 through 6, and it follows the line of the movie. I don't know how you're necessarily going to do a season 2 of these, because would they start back at the beginning of the movie? Would it carry on with these characters afterwards? Like, would they be like, the hop on board? Would that one be like a continuation of Judy's parents, and then would the little Rodentia be like, what would the next episode be after the wedding? I don't know. There is other places they could go with this, but Disney has so much IP that they're working on right now. I can't imagine they'd go back to this. Well, what would make sense to me is if they would do a Zootopia 2 and then do a season 2 that did this same thing off of Zootopia 2.
That's why I think it's that placeholder. Just, hey guys, don't forget about this kind of series.
Keep it relevant.
And when you're talking about the name, like originally it was like Zootopia Plus. That's just a bad name for the show. But then when you look at it, it is an addition to the movie, and the name makes more sense too.
Yeah.
Like I didn't even think about
Uh,
that till you just mentioned it a second ago.
Yeah, the last thing I would say about this one was that there was a warning at the top that said for alcohol, implied language, and kidnapped character, which I'm like, I feel like that's a tag that should go on Zootopia, but not on Zootopia Plus. I don't know, like the kidnapped character isn't referenced in the shorts that I remember seeing. Oh well, no, it's not. It's not. He's not referenced.
Oh, he's still got Mr. Big still has a bunch of the animals held hostage in ice at some point. Uh, I mean, the baby wasn't really kidnapped.
Yeah, it was a weird. I thought it was a weird warning, and it, again, to me, it fits on the first one, in the full length movie, but it doesn't. I don't think it fits there. So, but Ron, thanks for doing this one with me. It's fun to talk to you as always about this stuff. I appreciate it. We'll be back and do more stuff down the road. Just if you guys have not already, please make sure to subscribe to WDWNT TV. Please give us a like for this video. Ron took his time out of his busy schedule to come and talk with us, so let's give a like for Ron. It would be great to help people find the show. And other than that, we are looking forward to seeing you guys next time. Have a great week. Have a great Thanksgiving. We will not be on for Thanksgiving because well, I mean, it's Thanksgiving, but also get ready for the WDWNT marathon to raise money for Toys for Tots, correct? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think that's who we're doing again this year. That's been our
Yeah,
normal.
yeah,
We've got some good stuff we're working on for that. I'll be at some of the early morning, late night things. So check those out.
yep. And then we'll be back on the 30th. So thank you guys for watching, and we will see you next time. Have a good one.